And I want to open this too, because we're watching Democracy Now, which I have critiques of Democracy Now and Amy Goodman, um, but they're at least independent, right? They're independent media. But there was this really good article about the coverage of Ukraine from Consortium News. So they did an analysis of this range of TV news outlets and journalists, and they found out that a lot of the experts on the conflict in Ukraine are just war hawks, are just people who are connected to the weapons contractors or the military-industrial complex, who are only being brought on CNN or MSNBC or whatever else to argue in favor of more war because it makes them more money. So here, by example, we have Leon Panetta, a former U.S. Defense Secretary, CIA Director, White House Chief of Staff, who regularly appears on corporate media without disclosing any of his ties to the military-industrial complex. So he just shows up on CNN, and CNN tells you or tells your parents or tells grandma and grandpa, yeah, boy. No, CNN tells them, we have an expert on Ukraine here, an expert on the Russian military, and then this person from Raytheon gets up there and says, oh yes, more war is very good. They say, thank you very much, expert, and then the expert leaves, and they never tell you that that expert makes money off war, that the more wars that they have, the more that expert's company, Raytheon, can sell weapons to the U.S. military and make tons and tons of profits. And that's how the military-industrial complex works. That's how they control the media and lie to you. So, U.S. corporate media outlets are saturated with pundits, many of them ex-military or national security officials who take to the airwaves to promote hawkish policies and actions in Ukraine and elsewhere without disclosing their ties to the arms industry, according to a report published this week. Analyzing punditry across a range of outlets, CNN, MSNBC, and NBC News, Aditi Ramaswamy and Andrew Perez at The Lever found that the networks failed to inform viewers that many of their expert guests, who are calling for supplying Ukraine with more weapons to defend against Russia's invasion, were currently employed by the weapons industry or its advocates. Interesting. So they pretend that we care so deeply about the Ukrainian people, right? We have to sell them more weapons. We don't have to find Ukraine a way out. We don't have to negotiate a peace settlement between Ukraine and Russia. Nope, just send them more weapons. Make them fight to the last Ukrainian. That's basically been the policy of the U.S. because they're trying to use this country like pawns. And these weapons contractors, who are all over our media, are trying to use this conflict to profit. Never ever underestimate, I think Richard Medhurst said this, never underestimate the capitalist's ability to make a profit off of chaos. They are using this chaotic situation in Ukraine to push for more weapons sales and to sell more weapons. So this article also talks about the revolving door, which is a very, very important concept to understand, especially for understanding imperialism in U.S. politics. So you have these ghouls, these people like Leon Panetta here, who will work for Raytheon or Boeing or Lockheed Martin or one of these weapons contractors, and then they'll get a job in the White House, a really cushy job, as a CIA director or executive or a defense secretary or whatever else. And then when their done with that job, when their time is up, they'll go back to the private sector and they'll either work for, some other weapons contractor as some executive somewhere else, or they'll work, as a pundit, as an expert on foreign policy, where they basically just argue on behalf of Raytheon and Boeing that the U.S. should be involved in more wars and should be selling more weapons. Or Northrop Grumman is another major one. So the revolving door is extremely common to see. I mean, if you look at the political career of anybody, any of these figures like Leon Panetta, who are connected to the military-industrial complex, you'll see, a resume like this. U.S. Defense Secretary, CIA Director, White House Chief of Staff, and appears on corporate media. So he was working for the Pentagon, working for corporate media. So the Pentagon is technically public, and corporate media is technically private. So you have this revolving door between the government and the private sector, which allows them to become very, very tight. And it allows the media to become very, very tightly tied to the Pentagon. And it allows them to report whatever the Pentagon wants, because it's literally officials from the Pentagon who the media is talking to. Yeah. So what was that? Yesterday we were responding to a video of somebody who critiqued our coverage of Russia and Ukraine, and they were saying that I'm a conspiracy theorist who pushes this narrative that the media is lying to you. And this is just this big conspiracy that I push, that CNN's lying to you, but actually CNN's doing their best. It's like, well, then why do they have Pentagon officials giving us the news? Why do they not have investigative journalists, and instead they have people who work for weapons contractors giving us the news? You don't see any conflict of interest there. You don't think those people would lie to us or stretch the truth or push a certain narrative or agenda in any way. Okay. Okay, liberal.